Today, we're talking about something that confuses many English learners. Why do some people use meters while other people say yards? Why are there pounds and stones in some countries and kilograms and grams in others? Let's explore the difference between the imperial and the metric systems and learn some idioms that come from these old measurements. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome, especially if you're a new listener to the podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching English between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. Hello, Reza. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks very much. I've just had a cup of coffee and a chocolate biscuit, which I quite enjoyed. For anyone who might be a new listener, chocolate biscuits are an important part of our life, wouldn't you say, Craig?
They are a very important part of our life. And if any chocolate biscuit manufacturers would like to sponsor this podcast, we would only be too happy to welcome your sponsorship.
Okay, Craig, so let's get down to our main topic for this episode. Imperial versus metric. How can we divide this? What about, for example, if we divide our vocabulary into length or distance? That's one category. Weight or mass could be another. Volume, temperature, and speed. Shall we go with that?
Yep, let's divide the vocabulary in those categories. And hopefully with this information, listeners will be able to go the extra mile with their English studies.
Or kilometre if they're a bit lazy.
Or kilometre. But we wouldn't say go the extra kilometre. That's not an idiom, is it?
No, we don't say that. That's just not what you say. That's not the expression.
So Reza is every inch a gentleman. There's another idiom. Every inch, every part of him is a gentleman. And
are you sure? Have you seen all my parts?
Not all your inches, no.
There's a lot of inches there.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. And probably even more centimetres, because there are 2.54 centimetres in an inch. Don't forget, when you're using the plural of inch, you need to add the extra syllable. So it's inches.
Oh, 2.54 centimeters is an inch. In that case, in the future, when I describe parts of my body, I'm going to use centimeters because the number will be bigger then. Sounds better. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think you've put your foot in it.
not quite my foot.
Or maybe your feet. Feet is the plural of foot, and in centimeters, 1 foot is 30.48 centimeters.
If I recall correctly, because I don't use it much these days, I'm more of a metric man, I have to tell you, eh? But if I recall, a yard is 3 feet, is that right?
It is 3 feet in 1 yard, and 1 yard is 0.91 meters. So 1 yard is nearly a meter.
And a mile, as we hinted at earlier, is a bit more than a kilometre. That's why we say to go the extra mile, not the extra kilometre. That wouldn't be quite as far, because you need 1.6 kilometres to fill a mile. A mile is longer than a kilometre.
There's an expression with yards which is mainly used in American English, although I think British people know what this means. To go the whole 9 yards. If you go the whole 9 yards, then everything is possible. You're making the full amount of effort or giving something the full treatment. To go the extra mile. Many of my students go the extra mile when they're learning English. They do everything possible to improve.
What about weight, or if you prefer mass, M-A-S-S? It's the same as weight. How much things weigh. Craig, what would you say is the most common unit of measurement in the imperial system of weight?
I'd say it's probably pound, and 1 pound, P-O-U-N-D, yes, the same spelling, the same pronunciation as the currency, the English pound, but 1 pound in weight is nearly half a kilogram. It's 0.45 of a kilogram, so nearly half a kilogram to a pound. So if you see a recipe that says 1 pound of flour, then that's nearly half a kilogram.
But you can subdivide a pound into ounces, spelled O-U-N-C-E. And there are 12 ounces in a pound. You see, it's tricky, isn't it? The imperial system isn't nice and decimal. It's not always multiples of 10.
That's the problem.
That's
yes.
the problem, isn't it? It's 12 ounces in 1 pound. So an ounce is about 28.35 grams.
And have you noticed American speakers will often talk about people's weight in pounds? Like he's an average size man, 180 pounds, for example. That means absolutely nothing to me. I have no idea what a man weighing 180 pounds looks like. But then again, we use, or used to use more, I think, stone when we're talking about weight. So how much in metric is 1 stone, Reza?
1 stone is 6.35 kilograms. So in the United Kingdom, we don't talk about pounds for people's weight. We talk about stones. However, in the United States, they simply do people's weight in pounds. They don't use this word stone.
And my sister still uses stone to this day, even though she lives in Spain and has lived here actually longer than I have. I'll say to her, I lost 2 kilograms this week. She'll always say, how many stone is that? How many pounds is that? Oh, I don't know. I don't think of pounds and stones anymore because I live in a country like Spain that uses the metric system.
You can understand it though, Craig. Bear in mind that the metric system started to be introduced into the United Kingdom officially after we were born. When we were born, it was still officially everything 100% imperial, although now metric is accepted for some things. But I think it was the 1970s.
I can still remember the scales in our bathroom, the bathroom scales where we weighed ourselves in my first house, the house I grew up in, only had stones and pounds on it. It didn't have kilos. It didn't have kilograms. So everybody in the house weighed themselves in stones.
And speedometers, that dial which shows you how fast you're traveling in a car, in the United Kingdom, still the main number, the big number, will be written in miles per hour. And then in a little number, because it's considered less important, the translation into kilometers per hour, right?
Yeah, just in case you take the car over to France or Spain, you need to have that kilometers sign. Yeah, that's true. So we've looked at length and distance, we've looked at weight and mass. By the way, you can see all of these measurements and conversions and vocabulary in the show notes. Go to inglespodcast.com/601. Let's speak about volume now, because something that many listeners will probably have done if they've been to the UK is go into a pub and ask for a pint of beer. How much is a pint, Reza?
A pint is 568 milliliters, so a bit more than half a litre.
Although if you drink a pint of beer in America, you're not getting the same amount of beer, are you?
That's right. So you still might be a little bit thirsty after an American pint because that's only 473 milliliters. In other words, a little bit less than half a litre in America.
Reza, when I was younger, my friends and I used to drink a lot of beer, and we wouldn't measure our beer in pints. We would measure our beer in gallons. How many gallons did we have last night? A gallon in the US is 3.78 litres. Now that is a lot of beer. And in the UK, it's more. It's 4.55 litres. So 4.5 litres is 1 gallon. And I don't know if you know, Reza, you probably have a better idea than I do, going back to Northern Ireland and buying petrol. Do they still sell petrol in gallons in the UK? Or is it litres?
As far as I know, they show both on the petrol pumps. You can read both litres and gallons because there are people who can only use one or the other. Younger people can probably only use litres, and some older people can only understand gallons, so they put both.
Just be aware that if you're buying your petrol in the UK, you're going to get 20% more to your gallon than if you bought your gas in the US.
Craig, what's a 10-gallon hat?
It's a Texan hat.
Yeah. What do you use it for petrol or what?
I don't know. I don't know what you use it for. But 10-gallon hat is one of those really big, tall hats that Texan ranchers sometimes wear. Yeah. And if a Texan is speaking too much and boasting and has a really big ego, you can say, that guy there, he's all hat and no cattle. So all hat and no cows.
Yeah. But it's funny because there's a general kind of understanding that everything's bigger in America. The hats are bigger. The cows are bigger.
Not the gallons.
Portions are bigger.
Not
but
the
our
gallons.
gallons are bigger in the UK. Hey, their gallons are not bigger. But their 10-gallon hats, they're bigger.
More
cowboy hats are bigger.
More beer for your money and more petrol in your tank. Exactly.
Oh, by the way, in America, they exclusively use gallons when they're talking about putting petrol in your car. They never use liters in America.
That's right.
They're more imperial than the British.
Let's take a quick break here because I know you listen to this podcast to take your English to the next level. But what about your speaking? Is your fluency improving? Are you happy with your speaking skills? My conversation course focuses on making you a more confident and more fluent English speaker. You'll join me and a small group of motivated students, and we'll meet on Zoom and have topical discussions, role plays, debates, and presentations that will expand your vocabulary and help you express yourself effectively in English. So be proactive and take the first step towards becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. Send me an email today to craig@inglespodcast.com and I'll send you details of the next online conversation course. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast. Let's move on to temperature now, because temperature is an area that sometimes confuses people learning English. Now, 0 degrees centigrade, when you see that C after temperature, that's centigrade or Celsius. And if you see an F, that stands for Fahrenheit. Again, you can see these words written in the show notes, inglespodcast.com/601. Now, 0 degrees Celsius or centigrade is 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
And in America, they still use exclusively Fahrenheit today. So please bear that in mind. If you're ever looking, imagine you're going to the United States on holiday. You want to know what the weather's like. You think, what? It's 105? That's not possible. I'm going to die. No, you won't die. It's warm, but you won't die. But because it's in Fahrenheit, it's not centigrade. But still, it's going to be pretty hot. If it was 105 centigrade, you would die, I think, probably within seconds of being in that atmosphere. Don't worry. In the United States, they use Fahrenheit. In the UK, we used to, but now virtually nobody, not even many old people use Fahrenheit now, do they? It's pretty much all Celsius in the UK.
Yeah, in the UK, it's Celsius as well. And 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature at which water will freeze. So if you go below 0, that's Celsius or centigrade, then you can say it's below 0. And I know for a fact that yesterday in Poland, it was 9 degrees below 0, according to my friend Martin, who told me yesterday in our conversation class. Really, really cold. It's getting cold in Poland. So anything under 0 degrees is below 0. 9 degrees below, 20 degrees below, etc.
And Craig, what about the other end of the spectrum? I know that boiling point, it's been designed this way on purpose so that it would be a nice round number. 100 degrees is the boiling point of water. They designed it that way. What is that in Fahrenheit?
Well, you will not be surprised to know that it's not such a round number. A round number is an easy number, a complete number. It's 212 Fahrenheit. So, yeah, think about it. What's easier, 0 degrees and 100 degrees when you're talking about Celsius, or 32 degrees and 212, much more difficult to remember the Fahrenheit numbers?
Yeah, if you thought it was easy, like you thought, oh, 0 degrees centigrade is 32 Fahrenheit. Okay, so I just add 32. No, it doesn't work like that. There is a formula, but it's far more complicated than that. It's not just add 32. No. There is a way of calculating it, but I don't know what it is.
And that point of 100 degrees, boiling point, as Reza said, you can also use that in an idiomatic way. You could say, for example, that negotiations between the two superpowers have reached boiling point, have reached the limit where everybody is annoyed and angry. Imagine things boiling. So if something reaches boiling point idiomatically, maybe a relationship, then it's not good. It's getting to the danger level.
We already mentioned earlier that a mile is 1.6 kilometers. So when you're talking about speed, in other words, velocity, we in the United Kingdom still today talk about miles per hour, also in America. But in most of Europe, they talk about kilometers per hour. Or you can also use the word simply miles an hour or kilometers an hour. Yeah, per is a little bit more formal. So 1 mile per hour is 1.6 kilometers per hour.
So we've mentioned briefly where you'd find these measurements used in what countries, but let's recap and summarize them for you. So in the United States of America, you'll find the Imperial system. They use inches, pounds, miles, and Fahrenheit for temperature. What about in the United Kingdom, Reza, in the UK?
As ever, the British have to be a bit more complicated. They use a mix. So in Britain, nearly everybody uses miles and pints, and as we said, stones for measuring your weight. But people do also use meters, kilograms, and we definitely use Celsius, not Fahrenheit, for temperature. So the UK officially uses the metric system, but in reality, it still uses some imperial units in daily life. For example, we still use, even officially, miles for road signs. That's official. And pints for beer and stones for weight. But very often people will use these days meters and centimeters for their height. So it's kind of a mixture in the UK.
Right. Now, Canada, they are mostly metric. Canada mostly uses the metric system, although people still say pounds and feet sometimes. And in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland, those other English-speaking countries, officially they use the metric system like the rest of the world. So everybody else, all the sensible people, use the metric system.
Although the Irish only adopted quite late. I checked this on internet, and officially the complete conversion to kilometers for road signs in the Republic of Ireland was only in 2005. So up until then, they had been using miles. And in the deep, deep countryside, there are still a few signs in miles, but apart from that, it's kilometres, which is the complete opposite of Northern Ireland, which uses only miles. So bear that in mind. If you drive from Belfast to Dublin, don't think that, let's say you're coming from Belfast, you get over the border into the Republic of Ireland, don't think, oh, suddenly I can increase my speed by 30 miles per hour. No, you can't. The sign has converted from miles per hour into kilometers per hour, but it's probably more or less about the same. You can't suddenly drive any faster. Bear that in mind if you ever go to Ireland.
Yeah, and it might be the distance might seem a lot shorter if you're in Ireland because of the kilometers. So we did mention at the beginning of the podcast some idioms connected to weights and measures and distance, etc. As we said, go the extra mile. You make more effort than is expected. For example, with this podcast, Reza and I try to go the extra mile to help you improve your English.
There are quite a few expressions with mile. Here's another one. A miss is as good as a mile. That means that failing to do something, even by a small margin, is no better than failing badly. It's still a failure. A miss is as good as a mile.
You can run a mile from something figuratively, not literally. You're not literally running. you can avoid something or someone completely by running a mile from something. For example, I hate spiders, so I run a mile when I see a spider. That expression means I don't like them, I keep my distance, I run a mile when I see a spider.
A mile away could be simply the literal meaning. Something could be a mile away, so the distance is a mile. Okay, but it's also used as an idiom. For example, you could see that lie coming a mile away. Because he lies all the time. He's a liar. So you could see that lie coming a mile away. It was very obvious. I knew he was going to lie even before he did it. I saw it coming from a mile away.
You might hear the expression a country mile, which is a fairly long distance. And this is based on the idea that when you travel a mile in the countryside on one of those lovely rural roads or routes that you find in Ireland and Northern Ireland, then that takes longer than driving in the town or on a motorway, for example. So a country mile, a fairly long distance.
If something is within an inch of another thing, that means it's very close to something. It's usually connected to danger or some kind of major event. For example, he came within an inch of losing his job because he was very incompetent and the boss considered firing him. He nearly did, but in the last minute he said, okay, I'll forgive you this time. But he came within an inch. It very nearly happened.
And the idiom to give someone an inch and they take a mile means that if you give someone a little freedom, they'll possibly take much more. So they might take advantage of you. Be very, very careful with this person, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. If you give them just a little bit, then they'll take a lot more.
Craig, I see you staring into space. A penny for your thoughts.
I was thinking about my lovely coffee that I had before, hoping that I might get another one after this podcast. So a penny for your thoughts means you want to know what the other person is thinking. So it's not €1 for your thoughts or $1 for your thoughts. My thoughts are much cheaper. You'd say a penny for your thoughts, Craig. What's on your mind?
However, we go, I'm not sure if I should say we go metric or we go American. I think it's American when we say not 1 red cent. So this time is not a penny, it's converted to a cent. And that's used to stress that someone refuses to pay any money at all for something. For example, imagine I've given my ex-wife everything I've got. She's taken all my money. She's taken my house. And she comes knocking at my door. This is my ex-wife, and says she wants more. I say, I'm not giving you 1 red cent more. Absolutely nothing. Not 1 red cent.
Well, of course, when you do get married, originally, you might say, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, which means you're expressing your willingness, your enthusiasm to intensify or increase your support or your enthusiasm for something if necessary. So if we are going out for the evening, Reza might say to me, should we go for one more drink after the pub? I might say, yeah, why not? Let's have one more drink. In for a penny, in for a pound. Let's go all the way.
Rather than a glass, let's have the whole bottle.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Pound for pound is an expression which we could paraphrase as meaning when fairly compared, or perhaps considering all factors equally. Let me give you an example. Britain and France are very different countries. They speak different languages. There's a slightly different culture. Although I guess if you go to Africa and find a country there, that would be a much different culture. But they're different. But still, pound for pound, France and the UK are very comparable countries. They've both had empires. They're near each other. Their languages aren't that different. They both used to have a very active navy sailing around the world looking for new lands. Pound for pound, they have a very similar history, pound for pound.
I could also say, pound for pound, Reza is a very professional podcaster. So compared with other podcasters and all things being equal, pound for pound, he's an expert at podcasting.
Craig, you know what? Many a mickle makes a muckle.
I'm sorry, have you been drinking?
No. Although it would be quite apt to have a glass of whiskey before this one, because it's from old Scots English vocabulary. Many a mickle makes a muckle.
What's a muckle?
Well, it doesn't really mean anything.
And what's a mickle?
Good questions, both. Neither of them really mean anything in the modern world, but they were used in the past as units of measurements. A mickle is smaller than a muckle. So whenever somebody says, many a mickle makes a muckle, it means a lot of units of a small quantity of something. That's the mickle. If you have a lot of them, they add up in the end to a large quantity, right? To a large total. The total is the muckle. So many a mickle makes a muckle. It means like, well, you may be talking about only a small quantity now, but if you add that quantity over and over and over and over again, eventually it will add up to a large quantity, and that will be the muckle. So it's a very, very Scottish thing. It sounds better in a Scottish accent. Let's see if I can do one. Many a mickle makes a muckle.
Many a mickle makes a muckle. No, that sounds like...
Do you ever heard that?
Yeah, I have heard that before. And if you're talking about money, you might say something like, you look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves.
Oh, that's a great one.
Well, now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear what you think. Do you have any opinions about what we've mentioned in today's podcast? And more importantly, do you have any ideas for future episodes? We'd love to hear from you. Reza, how can people contact us?
Well, probably the easiest way is to leave us an audio message, and you can do that with SpeakPipe. There's a link in the show notes to speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. But remember that your voice message must be limited to 90 seconds. But Craig, what if somebody prefers to write?
Well, if you prefer to write, we'd like to give you a penny for your thoughts and tell us what you think. You can send emails to me by sending them to craig@inglespodcast.com, and to write to Reza. If you want to go the extra mile, you can reach him at belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with free or paid resources, why not visit the Mansión Inglés website? It's at mansioningles.com. And also, specifically for paid products, you can browse the online store. And that's at store, S-T-O-R-E, store.mansioningles.net.
And before we go out the door this week, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters. You too can become a Patreon supporter and join our program. And by doing so, you get instant access to the transcriptions of this podcast. And also you can join me once a month for a live Zoom chat so that you can practice speaking. So why not go the extra mile and sign up at patreon.com/Inglespodcast.
It would be very nice to mention every single Patreon supporter's name on the podcast, but we haven't got time. So, as usual, we are going to mention the names of the most recent sponsors who've just joined us this month. So thanks to our new Patreon supporters, A. Reina, Romeo da Costa, Yolanda, and Vanessa Martinez, but also all of the sponsors who've been supporting us for quite a while now.
Yes, thank you to all of you lovely people who have gone the extra mile to support us. What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we'll be talking about nursery rhymes for pronunciation practice.
That sounds interesting. Join us next week for some pronunciation practice. Until then, thank you for your company this week. Have a wonderful week ahead. It's goodbye from me.
And it's bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.